Welcome to Pistons Jack Chats, where I'll have a guest from the Pistons and NBA community join me each and every week to discuss your Detroit Pistons. Before we get started, if you haven't already, if you could please drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It all helps the channel just continue to grow. But let's get to it. I've got a very special guest today, Locked On Pistons star, Kahil. Koo, what's going on, man?
Appreciate you having me on, man. I always love collaborating with you, so looking forward to it. I hope everyone enjoys the episode. I hope you're doing well over there in a crazy different time zone. So hope everything's going good over there.
No, we're good, man. We're good. I think this is like the third or fourth time now we've done some form of podcast before. I know I've at least jumped on with you a couple of times at Locked On, so it's awesome to have you over on my show. But yeah, it's 11 o'clock here, so it's mid morning. I'm guessing for you it's 7 p.m.
Yeah, it's nighttime here. It's ready to go sleep.
Right, I'll be honest. Like sometimes I feel like I'm pretty bang on with your guys' time zones more often, just because of the amount of times I'm looking at it for Pistons games and East Coast games. So yeah, no, I'm glad we can make this happen. But look, man, we're gonna get straight into it. Like I mentioned, I've been on a couple of episodes with you of Locked On Pistons, and it's been a much different time then as a Pistons fan to what it is now. Over my memory, I think we've spoken about trades, where the team's going. It's normally been about the future and that kind of thing. But to kick us off today, I just want to go straight vibes, man. So yesterday or last night, the Pistons defeat the Portland Trailblazers in a game without down by 22 points, but apart from the game itself, when we zoom out, they're 18 and 18th. They're 7th in the East. 500 team for the first time in 5 years, at least in January. Like, how are you feeling, Koo? Like, you cover the team, but just like watching this team grow in the past few weeks, like, tell me about your vibes.
I think the vibes obviously are the best they've ever been since 2018, 2019, since Blake Griffin had the jersey on, suiting up for the Detroit Pistons, which has been a very long time. I'm getting old. It's crazy to think that it's like 7 years ago. That's crazy. But yeah, this is like the best vibe since then. This team, like you mentioned, they're 18 and 18. They fought back to get to 500. They're 8 and 2, I believe, in their last 10 games. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Before their last 3-game winning streak, it had been like 370 days since they had a winning streak. And now they've had 2 within like a few weeks. Right now they're a game behind 6th seed, 5th seed. Vibes are at an all-time high for this team. I'm really happy for the fans because this is a team that, obviously I think people know that it seems like Detroit is a football city, especially right now because of what's going on with the Lions. But people forget that when the Pistons have a product to support and guys to get behind, that their fans really will show up and show out. And even during the times when they were struggling, I felt like the Pistons had a very strong fan base. So I'm really happy for the fan base that they're getting to watch this type of play and have a franchise player like Cade to really rally behind. So I think that the vibes are all-time high.
You're touching on the fan base itself. So I don't follow the Lions. Obviously, I see just through Twitter, and I know as a general sports fan, they clinched the NFC, their number 1 seed in their conference. Like, are they Super Bowl favorites?
I think they are officially Super Bowl favorites right now, I think. But actually, I have a question real quick. Jack, do you guys watch football? Do you guys watch the NFL?
Like, as in Australians in general?
Like, is it popular over there?
Yeah, people will talk about it for sure. Like, people watch it. Like, my dad watches it. He follows the Seahawks, like, because he went to Seattle a few times. But people do watch it down here.
I didn't know how popular I didn't know how popular like the NFL, because I know it's getting more global and stuff, but I didn't know how how popular it was maybe outside the United States.
So I would say I feel like generally speaking, the NBA is more popular because a lot more people, basketball as a sport's very popular down here. But like the NFL is definitely you can come across plenty of people and they watch the NFL. Like I've got some friends who are love fantasy, like a lot of people go watch it through gambling or fantasy sports, but people watch it for sure. like, honestly, when I tell people I'm a Pistons fan, they're like, "Are you following the Lions?" Like, that's been a real thing for the past 2 years. And I'm like, "No, just the Pistons." They're like, "What?"
No, yeah, the
But,
Lions are definitely the talk of the town, but the Pistons fan base, man, when the Pistons have a practice support, the fans show up and show out, man. It's definitely Detroit is an overall great sports city when their teams give them something to root for. It's and I know you're coming to a game soon. I really want you to be able to see when you get to downtown Detroit. One of my favorite things, what I've been looking forward to the most a few years, is that in like just a square block, you got the Tiger Stadium, you got the Lion Stadium, and then you got the Pistons and Red Wing Stadium. They're all right here next to each other, like neighbors, back to back to back. So when they're all popping and they're all playing well, like especially over the next few weeks for the Lions, the city's just jumping. It's great. I absolutely love to see it.
Well, that's the thing, man. Like, I actually looked up the population of like Metro Detroit. It's only 500,000 people or something. But like when you see, like you said, it feels like a real sports town for a start, just for me on the outset here. But like now that the Lions are good, like you even just like the Tigers had that run, but even just in the arena now, like sometimes it looks a bit empty on that lower bowl, but I'm not sure if that's because of ticket prices or what, but it is loud in there. I've noticed it the past week since they've been home.
When you get there, you'll see, at least from the games I've been through so far this year, has been that the place. I think I saw someone tweet this actually too, where the camera shows the where you see it does look empty on TV, but it gets more and more packed at other areas. Like, I don't know. I've never understood this, why fans like to walk around and do different things during the game. Like, I want to watch the game and be like in my seat when the game's going on.
Yeah.
But so many people at Little Caesars Arena, they'll spend like more than half the game like at a bar or like in the suite, or like they'll just be like in different areas. And then throughout the game, it'll be more packed at times and not as packed at others. And then it's a little weird, but it's about. I'll say that it's more packed than it appears on screen when you watch.
Yeah. But well, and that's the thing, man. Like the volume in there, though, like that Ron Holland dunk yesterday. I was just rewatching that earlier. I'm like, holy shit, man! It's loud in there. The fan, like, it's awesome because, like, yeah, we don't need to revisit past seasons, but there hasn't been a whole lot of reasons for fans to come and support this team. Just being bluntly honest, but they're back. I feel like, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. And the question I want to ask you is, right now, like, I know you're in the media, but you're a Pistons fan. I know your fandom might be wearing off a little bit, but you are a Pistons fan through and through. Where does this team rank for you all time? I guess, like, because you're actually a touch younger than me, but we're pretty much the same age. Like, where does this team rank for you in your fandom? Because I feel like you were a bit young for maybe the going to work team.
Yeah,
So,
I was around for the going to work team. I was around 6 years old.
yeah.
7, 6, 7, around there. So I might have been, yeah, around that same age. And I grew up. I obviously have grown up a Pistons fan, grown up Detroit sports fan. Once you get into the media, you kind of try to leave the fandom at the door. So I've tried my best to kind of leave my fandom at the door when I cover the team. But I obviously, yes, I root for the team to play well, to do well. I want, like, obviously. This team, I would say, in terms of enjoyment, the thing I really would like to see how Pistons fans actually feel about this. I don't. It's definitely at an all-time high because the 2010s were so disappointing and such a dark time as a Pistons fan. But I feel like some people that are maybe a little younger than me don't remember the amount of excitement and push the 2015-16 team had.
And you're going to go there. Yeah.
Like the 2015-16, like I get the whole 18-19. You don't Blake Griffin season. If you don't view it as highly as I do, because Blake's my favorite Piston. That season was amazing. I loved it. I thought it was the most fun I've ever had watching the team. But I get why some people be like, "Oh, we knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere, so we weren't able to enjoy it as much." To each their own. I can get that. The 15-16 team, there was the amount of that. Look, if you go watch that Cleveland Cavaliers first round series and hear how loud, how insane the fan base was, like, there was a big push behind that team. A lot of people thought that Andre was him. They thought they got their franchise point guard in Reggie. This is coming off the Tobias Harris trade. They thought they finally swung the trade, a perfect fit. I remember watching a bunch of things in that offseason, the following offseason, people talking about this team might be making that next jump to the top 5 seed after these signings and the cap space. Like they had a young team and cap space after having an extremely competitive sweep. I know it was a sweep, but I've never heard so many people talk about a competitive sweep before outside. So I think this season still would go behind that one because I think that one of the since 2010 is probably the most hype I've seen the fan base in general behind a team. Because that was obviously before the injuries to Reggie and everything. That was a special season, man. That was a really fun season.
Well, agree with everything you said there. And that I reckon Stanley Johnson's rookie season was the best season of his career. Like he was, I know the shooting percentages weren't great, but like there was also real hope with him. So it was like you had like a team that made sense. They're all relatively young. You were hitting on these like trades for Morris and Tobias, like you said. And then you're like, oh, we've got Stanley here. Maybe he can be that wing. Obviously, we know what happened, but that playoff series was, even the games in Cleveland were like close. Like, but that team comes in 2 for me. Like, I'm not going to go into it too much, but this is the team. This is my favorite team of all time. Most team I've had hope with just because of the guy I want to ask you about next is Cade Cunningham. The Pistons, like the Blake team as well. Like, I really enjoyed that season, but for me, there was, like you mentioned, a bit of an expiry date on it, even though Blake is the best Piston I've ever seen in my fandom. But Cade, there's just a different level of hope with him. And I want to ask you about Cade. I think he has to be an all-star. Like, it's not even a question. Like, 24/7, 10 assists, 45, 38, 80 splits, 38% on pull-up threes, which I know you've been big on. Just talk to me about Cade and your expectations you had for him entering the season to where they are now, because I know mine have changed.
So heading into the season, I obviously had his trainer Ashton on the podcast. I had his brother on the podcast last year. So I've talked with them and kind of went through like before the year, like what do you expect from Cade, or what should fans expect from Cade? What's realistic? What's not, et cetera, et cetera. So I know Cade and his camp, they put the expectations extremely high for him. They want all the expectations. They want the expectations to be the ceiling, the sky. Like they expect him to be, and he expects himself to be a superstar every single year, to be one of the best players in the NBA every single year. Like that's where their expectations are at. And I know that Cade and all of them are very happy with how he's been this season, but I know they also think he can be even better than this. And and Cade believes he can be much, much better than this. As far as myself, I think he's about probably met to exceeded my expectations. I mean, he's I think I may be underrated to a point. Just how much of an impact is adding shooters would, like, and this is coming from someone who was screaming for spacing for the last 3 years for Cade. I think even as someone who wanted spacing that much, I even undersold it still. Like I didn't expect just by adding Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris, he'd go to become one of the best playmakers in the entire NBA.
I'm with you, man.
Like I did not expect that. I expected it to help him. I expected Cade to be one day be a top 10 to 15 player. But just adding Tobias and Malik, I didn't even think that would just immediately take him to second in the NBA in assist. And watching him just, I don't know, I guess I didn't expect it to click that fast this year for him. And I feel like what you drafted him to be, which is like his own offensive engine, for him to be his own top 10, top 15 offense instantly, you're seeing that happen. You're seeing him just dissect defenses, whether it's through his scoring or just creating open looks. The amount of points he generates, I talked about this in the podcast a few days ago. I think he's third in the NBA in total points generated when you talk about his own scoring and assist. I mean, he's on a different level right now. And if he's not an all-star, it would be crazy to me. I don't know how, especially with the team. Especially with the team success. I don't know how it wouldn't happen. So I think he's been great, man. And the crazy thing is he can be even better. So but I think he's definitely been great and he's worthy of an all-star appearance for sure.
I love that you brought up like him being his own offensive, like kind of hub in the sense of like that Luka Doncic and prime James Harden. I wasn't sure. Like, this is where he's exceeded my expectations. Like, is him being that and the team winning? So in their past 15 games with Cade, they're 10-5. And that includes a West Coast trip. I know they've played like the Hornets and some other teams, but Jaden Ivey is obviously now out. We're going to talk a little bit about him after. But like, it's translating to winning with him being this high usage, crazy playmaker. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the most flashy passes, but at the same time, like, they kind of are. The way he manipulates the defense, the no look lobs in transition to Ausar, like, they cannot be underestimated. Like,
I absolutely love his manipulation with not just his eyes, not just with his eyes, but where he releases passes from. If you watch this is like a very tiny detail that nerds like me like notice and but like where he releases passes, he'll lift the pass here to throw it low. He'll take an extra dribble low to throw it high to the opposite way. Like he uses his, not just his eyes, but where he's releasing the pass from. Like, for example, he'll pick up his dribble, pull his hands up, and then throw a hard bounce pass down to get he's learning how to manipulate defenses in so many different ways. It's been so entertaining to watch.
It's crazy, man. Like, and that's where he's exceeded my expectations, because like I honestly, like, and I'm so happy I'm pretty much completely wrong on this. I just wasn't sure he could be that guy. Like, I just wasn't sure if he had, like, I don't even know what it was. I think it was just a product of how much losing this team had done. And like you mentioned, we all know they needed spacing, but I don't think we realized how much that would benefit Cade. Like, and it's kind of almost makes you a little bit angry about prior seasons. But regardless, like, he is like I wasn't sure he could be a top 15 player in the NBA, but now I'm like, well, why not? Like, literally, why not? And that takes me to my next question. Like, his season's been awesome, but where would you say his next area of improvement can come to take him to that kind of all NBA, top 15, top 10 type of player?
So at media day, I talked to him a little bit about his floater and how, because I knew, talking with Ashton over the summer, that he had been working on his floater all off season. So I kind of asked him about it. I wanted him to talk about it a little bit. And he spoke about how adding a floater was going to help his finishing numbers and how make his finishing a little bit easier to where he's not having so many tough finishes, and kind of, he can turn some of those really hard finishes into floaters instead. And hopefully that would help with his efficiency. By far, the thing that he has to improve on is his finishing around the rim. That is the thing stopping him from being a superstar. It's by far. It's the one area of his game that he's not there yet. And I mean, I've said this to Ashton many times, and I'm going to be very vocal about it until it happens. He needs to use his floater so much more. It needs to be a part of his game, like 3 to 4 shots a game, where he's turning looks at the rim into floaters. So far this year, he's in the 90th percentile on floaters. He's one of the best in the league. His touch on floaters and hook shots from that 5 to 8 feet area, his touch is tremendous. You see it on post-ups, on turn-away hook shots. He has great touch in that area. And a lot of his finishes around the rim, he does blow some bunnies every here and there, and that's something I do think he can improve on. Just, whether it's turning some of those bunnies into dunks or just focusing more. I'm not concerned about that. The more of my concern with his finishes is that he seems to struggle at finishing through help side defense. A lot of times he'll get to the basket and the center will rotate over, and he struggles at either one, obviously foul calls, and I think that's some of it's out of his control when it comes to foul calls. I don't want to sit here and say he needs to do a better job at drawing free throws, because I feel like a lot of times he's just being flat fouled and they're just not calling it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I feel like he does struggle at times against a rotating defender from the weak side and finishing through that contact. So I feel like if he just resorted more to stopping before he got all the way there and just using his floater, it really would make his efficiency go much higher and increase some of his finishing numbers. But nonetheless, by far, the biggest thing he has to improve on is finishing nonetheless. He has to become a better finisher at the rim, whether that's turning those looks into free throws or becoming better at finishing through contact. If he doesn't improve that will cap him as like as a like sometimes all-star, but like he'll be capped at that if he can't improve his finishing. But I think he's going to. He'll be like a second guy if he can't improve his finishing. But like he improves his finishing and takes that to another level, or just starts using his floater more often. Like I don't know where his ceiling exactly is at, but that's the area for me.
I agree. I think so for sure. And I like that you brought up the post hooks because I think he's gotten to that a lot more this season. Just posting up in general has been much more of a feature of his game. Like I've even been surprised, like some of the offhand, like lefty hooks. I'm like, I just feel like they're going in every time, and that's something I don't think we saw a lot prior. But yeah, even if he's like the finishing, I think you just raise a good point. Like it's about the way he finishes in the paint. Like it don't have to all be like layups and all these creative finishes like that. So use that floater. And I feel like we've seen him get to the floater a bit more, but like you said, could definitely get those attempts up. But like, yeah, man, if he can improve that, it's it's very exciting. I'll just say that. Just to round it out on Cade, defensively, what have you seen from him this season? Because I think he's this is the best defensive season I want to say, at least since his rookie season. But I think this is better. Thoughts on that end of the court?
I think you're seeing where he's best at. He's not someone you want to be putting him at the point of attack, guarding small guards. You don't want him guarding quick guards. You don't want him guarding like guys like that. But if you have him guarding threes, guys his size or a little bigger, having him as a weak side rim protector at times, like I think he's really impactful at that. When you have him kind of in the gaps, trying to force steals, using his length and stuff, he's really good when you use him like that. He can get into foul trouble, and when he gets into foul trouble, I think he needs to avoid foul trouble, but two, he needs to learn how to, and this is really hard to do, but remain an impactful defender while being in foul trouble. Because usually as soon as he gets 2 fouls in the first quarter, you can go ahead and just chuck up him playing defense the rest of the half because he doesn't want to pick up another one.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he has to carry so much offensively, and he knows that if he goes out, the team's screwed. So he just doesn't try. He stops trying on that end. But anytime he gets into foul trouble, he just stops playing defense. And I understand it, but you can't, you have to find a way to remain impactful. But I think the main thing JB's done is just figure out where he's best used at, is guarding threes and using his weak side rim protection, using his passing lane defense, like stuff like that. I feel like in previous years, too often he was guarding like ball handlers and stuff and navigating screens. I don't think he's that great at that. I think he's much better in where they're trying to utilize him now, and that's perfectly fine. You should be playing him as a three defensively. That's what his size looks like, and you should be acquiring guys that can get and play the point of attack like an Ausar Thompson. So I think that's the big thing for Cade.
For sure. And you just brought up a name that I want to go to next, and I was going to talk about these two in tandem because Ausar Thompson and Ron Holland have just been so much fun to watch. And I love that we're getting to see them share the court a little bit together more recently. But I want to start with Ausar Thompson. You've always been very high on Ausar, and rightfully so. What have you seen from him this season since returning to the court from the you know what I'm saying? I can't remember. I've just had a blank.
The blood clots he had last year.
Blood clots, correct.
So the one thing I've seen is that his handle does look better, but it's still every now and then you still have the wild handle, but you can tell that he was working on it, and something that is better. It 100% is better. He's beginning to the paint. He gets to the paint almost instantly, almost every time he tries to drive. I do have a frustration with him that he doesn't just go up with shots. He'll jump stop in the paint and kind of just stay there, where he could just go up and dunk or go up and draw a foul. That's something he has to get better at then. But his ball handling looks improved to me. He's one of the best athletes to ever play. Like, this is great. Like, the stuff he does on the court is just insane. It's just alien-like. And defensively, I mean, we already knew what he was defensively, man. Defensively, he's just that Minnesota Timberwolves game. Put that defensive film on for any defender in the NBA, dude. He just completely wrecked, single-handedly was wrecking their offense. Like, he had 5 steals in the first 13 minutes of his playing action. Like, he was just like he was just tormenting them. He was just wrecking everything. I think you're seeing that he is quite. I said this on the offseason. He is capable of completely warping the Pistons defense just himself. Just having him on the floor, he just warps their defense. In transition, he's insane. He's just an automatic alley-oop finisher in transition. He's just crazy. And then I really am looking forward to them utilizing more with the ball in his hands on offense in the half court, so I can see where just how improved he is actually as a ball handling playmaker. Because I still very much dislike the reps when he's just sitting in the corner waiting for a spot up. But I think that's not happening as much with JB. And I think Ausar, you see just how impactful he can be, and he hasn't even come close to where he can be. And like I can only imagine what he's going to be like in 3 years.
It's insane. Like that first half against the Timberwolves, like it was like 2017 Kawhi on the defensive end. Like he was just like anything he wanted, he'd just steal it. Like whether it was like a cross court pass, he's got it on ball. He'll just rip it from you and dunk it down the other end. Like I was just like, this is special. We know it, but like just watching that, you're just like, holy, like, wow, like this kid is a keeper. Like no matter what, like I just. And that's with an offensive game where free throws really are been a struggle. I'm with you. Like when he drives, sometimes like I wish he would just go up instead of like trying to do these really tough jump passes all the way back out to the 3-point line. He can make some of them and some look awesome, but some of the times he just gets himself in a lot of trouble. But it's like, I don't care. Like he should be starting because what he can do in transition as well. And I really noticed it in the game against Portland yesterday. Without him in the starting lineup, like Cade would go to run in transition and there's just no one to go with him. Like, because Beasley, THJ, and Tobias, like, they're kind of just going to give you transition threes. Like, Cade kind of was left out of running mate. So, like, he's so damaging in transition. And I think that's an underrated element of, like, yes, there's spacing concerns with him and Duren starting. And I was someone who flagged that. But and I'm not saying long term that's what you want, but even just for like the immediate future, like I'm kind of fine with it because of what he can do in transition and the steals he creates on that end, the pressure he takes off Cade defensively. Like he's just awesome. Like I love watching him play. I'm so happy he's back out on the court.
No, yeah, I love Ausar, man. I love both the Thompson twins. I was high on both of them. Watching them is an absolute treat. But Ausar, he's going to be special, man. I can't wait to see what he's going to look like in 2 to 3 years.
No, it's awesome. And then to his running mate and Ron Holland, I can't remember your post-draft thoughts on him, but I think a lot of fans expected not much of a role for Ron this season. And look, he hasn't played a heap of minutes, but I think his impact's been pretty great. I'm not going to read out his stats because it's not really a box score type of thing with him, but what have you seen from him? Or is there anything in particular that surprised you about him since what we saw at Summer League to now?
I think I was someone who did not think he would be getting rotation minutes this year. I thought he was an incredibly raw prospect and really, really young. I was not expecting him to have impactful minutes this year. And I think where I was most wrong at was his ability to be an impactful defender right away. Because most times rookies are not supposed to be good defenders. Like I know Ausar was last year, but he's like the exception. He's not the rule. So I wasn't really expecting Ron to just come in instantly and be a good defender. But when he comes into the game, like the energy just completely shifts, like instantly. As soon as he comes in, defensive energy, tenacity, everything, aggressiveness, everything just completely shifts for the whole team, and you feel it immediately. And I think another area that he's been maybe better at than maybe I thought was his ability to get to the rim and score. And I say that as not so much that I didn't think he could get to the rim and score. That was what was his biggest selling point as a prospect. But I thought that he would really struggle at forcing shots and therefore struggling with his efficiency at the rim. Because I thought he'd take a lot of bad shots just forcing the issue. Now, sometimes he does still force the issue, but he's doing a lot better job than I thought at creating opportunities where he's not, taking bad shots to the rim. He's getting clean looks at the rim. He's attacking at the right moments in the half court for the Pistons offense. He's attacking at the right moments in transition. Like I think each game so far this year, he's just been growing more and more mature as a player and kind of understanding here's where I can impact and here where I can't. And I think he's just each game of the year, each month, I feel like he's gotten better. And I did not expect him to be this ready this fast, but he's blown away any expectations I've had.
Like, do you think when the Pistons, well, I guess I don't know if, like, do you think it's safe to say Ivy's not coming back this season?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you
So
saw, but Omari just tweeted out. Did you see what he tweeted out just now today?
I've missed it. No,
He
hit
just
us.
tweeted out an hour ago, or actually it was 2 hours ago. I saw it an hour ago. He tweeted out that he spoke with a doctor and they were talking about Jaden Ivey's timeline is going to be 4 to 6 months. So
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I said it when the injury news came out. He'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. It's just going to mean in 4 weeks you'll hear that he's going to rehab and is going to be out for another 8 weeks or something. Like
Yeah.
that's what it's going to be. So yeah, I don't expect him to be coming back.
No, and like it was good you clarified that for a lot of fans. I think I just seen somewhere that he could be back in like 8 weeks, but anyway, obviously that's completely wrong.
I think
But
like the best, like I think I saw something like that too, where like maybe 6 to 8 weeks was something.
yeah,
But I think 6 to 8 weeks was more so when you can like where he's going to be rehabbing is what I understood. But I could be reading that wrong as well.
well, it's like even if that was the case, I still feel like they would be incredible, like because he's so young and all that kind of thing. Probably overly cautious. But my question was going to be, do you see like Ron not being in the rotation for the foreseeable future? Like my opinion, I think he should be in it no matter what, whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Like I just think the impact he has is great. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Ron will be a part of the rotation the rest of the year. I think they're already trying to run him in Ausar minutes. They've done it quite a few times already the last like week and a half. Not for long spurts, but you're getting it here and there. And I mean, you see the vision with what Trajan is really like looking forward to with like two wings who just absolutely wreck you defensively. And what they can do in transition is crazy. Both of them, they're just like monsters in transition. So I would be shocked if he's not part of the rotation for the foreseeable future. I don't see there's no one else really, challenging for his minutes. I don't think right now. I honestly think he probably should be getting more minutes than he's getting, even if it means that him and Ausar should share the floor a little bit more. But I think he's definitely earned it. Especially like I said, anytime he hits the floor, the energy completely changes. Like everything is just like if the team's struggling, just put Ausar and Paul Reed in, and all of a sudden you'll win the next 15 minutes. Like it's just like it's like an automatic.
The energy, it's crazy. It's a real shift. He's like yesterday, I was just begging JB, please put him in, like when they're having these slow starts, because he'll just make a play and get the crowd into it, especially when you're at home. But I want to quickly touch on the 2022 draft class for the Pistons, because both of these players are extension eligible and both are in weird situations, I would say, based off the recent injury news and just the other guys' performance this season. So Jaden Ivey, just quickly, he was having one of the best 6-game stretches I think he's had, or 5 games before he went down. On the season, 18 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 40% from 3 on, I think, 5 a game. Thoughts on his season now that it sounds like it's officially done, and just moving forward, your thoughts on Ivy with the Pistons long term?
So people get mad anytime we talk about like long-term stuff because everybody immediately calls me a hater, dude. So it's just like
with Ivy in particular, you call
yes, it's definitely Ivy. So this is where my stance was on him like 2 weeks ago before the injury. I said this on the podcast. I think he's proven that he's 100%. At least he's proven that he can have a role in this team long term. Whatever role that is, I think is fluid. Whether it is the starter or as a sixth man, I think he's proven he can have an impactful role. I really like some of his improvements, especially shooting wise. Shooting wise, I think it was where his big improvement was this year. He still struggles finishing around the rim or where you expect him to be at. Last I checked, I believe he was in the 30th percentile at the rim. I can pull it up real quick, but he still struggles with that. But his overall improvements this year were fantastic to watch. He was having the best season of his career, especially like you mentioned, last 2 weeks of the season or last 2 weeks of his season. he was playing absolutely fantastic. It was 22nd percentile at the rim this year. So it's actually slightly down from last year. But as a shooter, he's in the 92nd percentile in catch and shoot jumpers, 73rd percentile in all jump shots. As a spot up shooter, he's in the 84th percentile. So shooting wise, he leaped and he was fantastic. He was really feasting off of Cade's gravity as a cutter, as a off ball shooter. Like he was having the best season of his career, no doubt. And his instant scoring, his instant offense was needed by the Pistons. So I hope it's clear. I am saying he had a great year for a bounce back. He had a great bounce back year. However, if you're asking long term, the question for me it will continue to be like, for me, the way I think Trajan, and I could be wrong, we'll see. But for me, the way I see Trajan looking long term is I think he wants Ausar and Ron to be in the starting lineup at some point. I think he wants Ausar guarding point of attack guys. And I think he wants Ron guarding the next best player. I don't think he wants either, at least in my way I see things, I don't see either one of them as a power forward. I don't think either one of them are good guarding big Giannis. I don't think that's what they're good at. They're good guarding on the ball. They're good guarding on the perimeter and getting out and trend. Like that's what they do. So for me, I've always felt like once he drafted Ron, I always felt like that. Okay, I clearly can see what Trajan's vision is. He wants the smallest guy in the court to be Cade. He wants Ausar, Ron, and another wing on there with a really good five. And he just wants to be able to have size, versatility, length, and just be able to wreak havoc defensively with athleticism, get on transition. That's why I've always figured once he drafted Ron, that was going to be his vision. However, that doesn't mean Ivey can't have a prominent role in the team, even if that is the case. And that may not be the case. Maybe he wants to start Ivey long-term next to Cade, and that's fine too, because Ivey was really performing well offensively next to him, especially as an off-ball shooter. But overall for me, all this season was for me. I know it's different for other people. What it was for me was Ivey proved me that you're an impactful NBA player. Proved me that you can be a good NBA player and that you're worthy to have on the team because you be impactful. And he did that for me. I know some people may feel differently on the type of role he could play, which is the long-term star next to the second guy, whatever. I'm not there, but I have been sold that if they give him a contract extension next season, I wouldn't this offseason until you see him 100%. But when you see him 100%, he's playing like this. I have no problems giving him a contract extension that's not like a max or anything, but like I give him a contract extension and because I think he has a role somewhere, whether it's a starter, six man, whatever. I think he has a role as an impactful player on this team.
Yeah, I think, and everything you outlined, like I think fans just Ivy. I'm a big fan of Jaden Ivey, but everything you say is true. Like before this season, like end of last season, like I was really down because I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes, but he had like 6 games where Cade wasn't playing. I think Duren was out. And look, the team around him was horrible to close the season, but he just really, like, I almost forgot he was out there at times. And I was like, okay, like you've been starting now for like 50 games. Like, yes, Monty derailed your second season, but just the way he ended the season, I was like, oh, I'm not sure him and Cade. No, I'm just not as high. But this season, the shooting, the stuff, like he's had multiple games where him and Cade have played really well together as well, which I think is huge. And it's resulted in wins. He's showed some stuff in the clutch. I would be fine with an extension, but I still, like, this is kind of the bummer about his injuries. It's like, I still just feel like we haven't seen enough Cade and Ivey minutes. Like, we've seen some of it. It's just kind of been the way, like, Cade missing his whole second season, now Ivey missing a huge chunk of his third. It's still just a bit of a weird situation, albeit like it was trending positively. So it's going to be super interesting to see how Trajan plays this. But I want to get to the next topic. Just quickly, Jalen Duren. I would say he's been number one on Pistons fans. What do you want to call it? Like hit list or hate list? I don't know. And I've like early in the season, like I was right on his case. I think in the past few games, his energy's been much better. Maybe let's just talk about his most recent stretch. Because I think there's been enough said about the earlier portion of the season. Just like where are you at with him? Because he's talk about Ron and Ausar starting. It's like it's tough to see Duren there as well. But your thoughts on him?
Well, I mean, it's tough because it's tough to see it happening because fans that want to accept this, but at some point, someone's going to have to go. Like
Yeah.
rarely do you see everyone survive the rebuild. So if someone eventually does not survive the rebuild, but don't need to talk about that because they're playing really great, and you should just enjoy what they're doing now. So, but to talk about his recent stretch first, I just literally dropped a film breakdown like an hour ago, talking about the different ways that JB's using him defensively. For the majority of his career, they've tried to play him as a drop big and in pick and roll. They tried to play him as a drop big, and for the large majority of this season, they tried it. He just has really, he just hasn't been good. He hasn't been good defensively. Let's just leave it at that. I don't need to go and pile on, but just has not been good. However, over the last 2 weeks, they've started to blitz him a lot more in pick and roll. They've started to have him play much more aggressive at the level and try to get him just. When you do that, it kind of takes some of the thinking away, because when you're in drop coverage, you have to understand angles. Am I too far up? Am I too far back? Am I taking away the ball handler? Am I taking away the lob catcher? Am I taking away the bounce pass? There's a lot of things you have to constantly be processing at a high level quickly, in anticipation and understanding what angle you need to be having it's a lot. And there's a reason why there's only a few really great drop bigs like Brook Lopez and Giannis and some of that, and Rudy Gobert, stuff like that. But recently, you've seen them start to have them blitz the pick and roll, play high at the level, and just trap, or really try to get handsy and try to use his hands and try to create some turnovers, some havoc. And I'd say for the most part, the results have been encouraging, especially when Ausar is on the floor, because what that now causes is you're making the primary ball handler pick up his dribble to where now that guy's not hurting you. If he does try to pass out of it, you're basically telling Duren, hey, just get active with your hands and try to create turnovers, try to create havoc, and just don't worry about anything else. Just get up there. Don't contain the ball handler. Don't let him get around you. Just contain them and force them to pass, and just get back to your guy. And what that allows you to do, you may force a turnover out of a bounce pass. Duren may deflect it. There's a turnover I point out in the video I just uploaded where they try to do a cross-court skip pass and he tips it. So use his length in his hands, whatever, to create turnovers. But what it also allows you to do is, if you're playing with Ausar, now you can allow Ausar to basically be a roamer on the weak side. So if the defender, which a lot of the times in the videos I broke down, the clips I broke down, a lot of times what happens, the quickest way to beat a blitz or a trap is a slip. And the roller will slip. And then you got Ausar just roaming weak side. His anticipation and feel is off the charts. It's one of the main reasons why I was so high on him. And Ausar's just taking steals in the passing lanes. He's getting there before the roller gets there. He's picking the pass off. He's causing havoc. He's getting them in the rotation, and he's getting a steal in the passing lanes. So basically, they went from being a more conservative style defense, I feel like, basically is what I'm trying to say, to trying to be a little bit more aggressive and try to just force turnovers and just try to force, panic within the offense. And it's been encouraging. However, the main thing for me is the question I have now, and I'm interested to see it answered. How much of it is Duren better at blitzing and playing that way, or how much of it is just Ausar Thompson being so great off ball as a roamer that he's just making things happen? So I want to see it play out for the rest of the year. But it has been, I think, a good adjustment, and at the very least, an interesting adjustment that I'm willing to see play out the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm fine with more Ausar and Duren minutes. See what you can make work there defensively, because I think you've brought it up multiple times. But last season, wasn't a massive sample, but as soon as they got Simone Fontecchio, Ivy, Cade, Tech, Ausar, and Duren actually was a positive net rating. Now it was only it was over 100 minutes, I think, but
it was +4 net rating and 124 minutes.
So there's something there with those two, with a wing that can shoot, and then Cade and Ivy. There's some data there to say it can work. So why not see? Because these are all the decisions you got to make if you're going to extend Duren or trade him or whatever you want to do. But I'm conscious of time here, but I want to just quickly give me your 1-minute thoughts on JB Bickerstaff.
I think JB has been absolutely fantastic, like absolutely fantastic for the team. And there were some concerns from Cleveland about whether he'd be creative enough offensively. And maybe in a few years, that's something that maybe will come up potentially. But that doesn't matter. Like what he's done with this team, how he's gotten them to buy in to what he's preaching, what he's been able to get out of all of them has been tremendous. The fact that he was able to have them being like a top 10-ish defense for the first 15 games of the year is still like the greatest gift from God I've ever seen him. I don't know how he was able to do it. I don't know how he was doing it with this personnel, but he was doing it. It was fantastic. And then how he's gotten the offense now to pick up, how he's gotten Cade to really buy in. And I mean, he has to take some credit for how Cade's improved, how Ivy had improved, how Ausar has been implemented, how the role players and the veterans have been used and how they've played. Like, I think what he's done, and it's something that people from Cleveland said he would be able to do, establish a culture and establish a winning culture and establish a foundation. And he's doing that. He's been absolutely fantastic. I have no bad things at all to say about JB Bickerstaff this year. He's been great.
He really has. And like to that like creativity stuff on offense, like I agree, maybe that comes in a couple of seasons, but even like some of his out of bounds plays, like we've seen the Pistons win a game off one or two of those. Like it got Ron Holland some free throws, which would have won a game in Milwaukee. Like, yeah, the culture thing was huge for the roster, but also just the organization as a whole. And it's not just JB, but like, yeah, he's been incredible. Can't like he has to be in like coach of the year consideration. I'm not saying he's the leader, but he has to be.
I mean, I think it's worth a conversation, but I think Cleveland just having such an outrageous season.
Yeah,
I think Kenny Atkinson is gonna. I think he's gonna run away with it
for sure. No, but I think JB's at least in that convo. Like, yes, he probably won't win it, but I mean, this is like where they are right now. That's like I honestly did not expect this. Like,
I don't think. I mean, I don't think any honest Pistons fan expected this. I
Yeah.
don't. If someone tells me they did, I don't believe you. Like it's as simple as that.
Because I think we were similar. Like, what 29, 31 wins would have been a huge tick for me. Like, so it's been fun. But cool. Just a couple of quick questions here before we get out of the show. You kind of answered this, but favorite Pistons player of all time?
It's still Blake.
Still Blake.
That
Who's number
season,
two then?
Cade. Probably
Yeah.
Cade. Blake's season was just too special for me, man. It's it's gonna be hard to plant Blake. I'm not gonna lie to you. That season was just too crazy for me. But Cade's probably number two. I think this is the first time I felt like the Pistons have a franchise player like since the going to work days. Like this is the first time, and I think he's gonna be absolutely special. So I'd have to go with Cade.
I love it. Favorite Pistons team of all time? You can't answer this, but still, I want to know.
That one's a little bit harder, dude, because I think I might go with that 18-19 team again still because of how much I loved Blake, and honestly I think that was the best version of Andre I've seen too. Like when he was finally able to not be the best player on the team, like him and Blake, especially that second half of the season, dude, they were dominating. I remember NBA.com writing an article about how great of a tandem they were from like December to February. Andre was like dominating defensively. I remember that month of February. He had like 5 straight games, like 4 blocks. Like it was, they were. I'm gonna go with that team. The second close team is 15-16, just because of the hope. But 18-19 was probably the most fun I've had watching the team. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I remember they went through a bit of maybe a tough stretch in December, I want to say, or maybe, and I remember things turning around when Blake won in LA against the Clippers. He dropped like 42. But yeah, even just like Blake and Andre, like I swear that like they were running pick and rolls together. Like
it was
they were so
fun to watch.
Yeah,
that pick and roll is so unorthodox. You don't see that. You don't see other teams pulling that off.
It's insane. I like that. I can see why that team's your favorite. It's definitely in my top 3. But favorite moment as a fan of the Pistons, like a play in particular that sticks out. Could be the night that you learn they got the first overall pick, the lottery. Like,
man, that's a tough one, man. Man, so the few that come to my head instantly. Man, this is gonna sound. Everyone listen. This is gonna get so mad. The few that come to my mind instantly was one, Blake's 50-point game against Philadelphia at the beginning of the 18-19 season. That was crazy. Winning the lottery, I remember losing my mind when I saw they won the lottery. So that night certainly is up there. The other moments, I'm not gonna lie to you, that were pretty dope were the Stanley Johnson getting into it with LeBron in the playoffs. Like that was like that. I was 18 in high school still when that happened, and I remember going to school the next day like, yeah, we got the LeBron stopper. We got the future of the franchise right here. Like I remember feeling like that when I was in high. So those are like probably some of my three top moments. Again, if you hear that, it probably tells you like how bad it's been since 2010. But like those are some of my favorite moments. Those three probably.
I think that's right up there. The only other one I can think of, I've seen a lot of fans talk about, is that KCP dunk on LeBron in the playoffs.
Oh my
Was it
God,
game
that
3?
was
Game 3 or game 4. And it was like, holy, like it felt like, because like you said earlier, they felt like they had a chance to win every single game. And it was like, well, they're gonna win a playoff game. KCP on LeBron's head. Like that's the only other moment I can think. For me, it's as grim as it is. It's the lottery. Like
no,
I
the
was at
lottery. I mean,
work,
that
man.
was a huge. I mean,
That was
that was a
crazy.
huge moment. That was that's the first time, like in like what was it, like 40 years, the Pistons have moved up in the
Yeah,
lottery, and it's to the first pick. That was that night. I lost my mind that night. But my answer, I'll say, is the 50-point game from Blake because I just remembered. I remember the fake handoff, and when he hit the and one, I remember like losing my mind when that. Like I can still remember exactly where I was when that play happened. So I will go with that one.
No, that's a great answer. Okay, 2 more quick ones, and this is it. I promise. I only am asking you this because of the famous Darth coup, but lowest moment as a Pistons fan and media member.
Definitely the losing streak last year, man. The losing streak last year. That was like I can't imagine. I never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined like it getting that low, especially the back end. I think the lowest was when Cade was. It looked like Cade was damn near crying in the post game.
Yeah.
And was like, bro, we can't be this bad. We're not 2-26. Like that moment was like, oh my God.
That was against the Jazz. And that was the game we thought they're going to break it. I think it was like game 20, I want to say, maybe a little bit. But it was like the Jazz had no one playing. And that's where there's that clip of Cade walking off the court looking like he's about to cry. I think sell the team chance. I think people were wearing paper bags on their head. That was the lowest for me.
No, yeah, it 100%. It definitely was really, really low. There's another personal low for me. I'm not gonna say it so I don't get roasted. I'm not gonna say which one it is.
That's okay.
I think people can speculate and pick up, but I'll leave it alone.
We'll leave that for the people. Last one. So you've carved out a pretty big audience for yourself, covering the Pistons, and especially the last 4 years doing Locked On Pistons. I'm sure you get people reaching out to you all the time for advice, guidance, that kind of thing. What would be your best piece of advice to give to someone looking to do Pistons content or just NBA content and stuff in the media in general?
So there's 2 pieces of advice I always give people when someone sees me in person and asks or anything like that. 2 things. One is just do it. That's like that's by far the number one thing. Just go and do it. Like there was a long time when I graduated high school or when I was graduating high school, I wanted to make a blog. I wanted to make a YouTube channel. I wanted to start doing stuff, but I was afraid that people would make fun of me. I was afraid like what it would look like on camera. Would people just comment and laugh at me and stuff? So it took a while for me to actually do it. But once you do it, just don't care what anyone says. Just do what you love and do what you want to do, and that's like by far the best piece of advice. Even when there's not people like listening and watching, like you said, I do take pride in the fact that I've been able to build this kind of audience. But like I still remember the days in 2019, 2020 where I was writing my own blog that like 2 people were reading that were family members and making YouTube videos that like 100 people were watching. Like I still remember those days. So it's not going to happen instantly, but just do it and stay with the grind. And the second thing I would say, which is really important, never consider yourself the smartest in the room. I've learned so much about basketball. I've went through and I remember in my first 2 years in college, I remember spending time at home on YouTube, just looking up different play sets, looking up different, advanced stats, trying to learn how teams looked at this, trying to look at that, what goes into this advanced stat, what goes, different defensive coverages, all this. And I played basketball my whole life, so I knew like coverages and stuff, but kind of just like getting an understanding of all that. Then I joined group chats and got around other people who were doing it longer than me that were smarter than me. I was willing to admit were smarter than me at the time, so I could learn more and more stuff. So there's nothing wrong. You never want to be the smartest in the room. Always surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, know more than you, and be willing to admit that and just learn. So those are the two things that I would recommend to anyone trying to get into basketball media or content or breakdowns or anything like that. Those would be my two biggest pieces of advice.
I love it. Both awesome. And the first one in particular, because that was something definitely affected me as well. And why I probably started doing this a lot later than I would have liked maybe, but just do it. And you might get some people who try and make jokes about you at the start when you're figuring it out. But those same people, as soon as you start getting just a little bit of traction, they come straight back. It's funny. Sometimes
the haters come back more than the people that like you do. I get ready for that. That's the haters and the trolls are more loud than the people who support you. I'm going to tell you that now. You're going to hush them down.
So I think that's such good advice, man. But that's going to do it for today's show, guys. Ku, thanks so much for joining me, brother. Always a pleasure to just chat Pistons and anything in general with you. I'm sure everyone knows, but just please tell the people where they can find you, the work you got going on, and all that kind of stuff with Locked On Pistons.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. I'm always down to come on the podcast whenever you want me to, man. I appreciate all the stuff you do. You do great content. Especially, I love all the stuff you be posting on Instagram. That stuff, I love your content over there. But yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Kahil. You can find the podcast Locked On Pistons, whatever podcast platform. Also, the YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the season. We're around 740 away, so really would appreciate all that support. And also, you can follow my personal YouTube channel at Kahil, where I do the film breakdowns for the team. So, but yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. And was that Jalen Duren breakdown on the other YouTube channel?
Yes.
We'll put a link in the description for that one as well, because everyone should go check that out. But thanks so much, Ku, and thanks so much, everyone, for watching. That's going to do it. Please like, subscribe, drop a comment below. And as always, go Pistons. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below.